The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Raven's Hollow Palace, as Queen Isabella stood at her bedroom window, watching the gathered crowd below. Their faces were etched with concern, some holding flowers, others clutching handwritten letters. The news had spread quickly through the kingdom overnight, and now hundreds of citizens had come to show their support. King Edmund sat heavily in his favorite armchair, his usually strong shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. At 68, he had weathered many storms during his 30-year reign, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His hands trembled slightly as he held the medical report that had arrived just hours before dawn. "The people deserve to know," Isabella whispered, her voice barely audible above the gentle murmur of voices rising from the courtyard. She had always been the bridge between the royal family and their subjects, understanding their hearts in ways that came naturally to her. Prince Alexander, their eldest son and heir to the throne, paced nervously across the marble floor of the palace library. He had canceled all his morning appointments, something that had never happened in his 15 years of royal duties. His wife, Princess Helena, sat quietly reading the same page of a book over and over again, unable to concentrate on the words before her. The palace staff moved through the corridors with unusual quiet, their normal, cheerful chatter replaced by concerned whispers and meaningful glances. Mrs. Pemberton, the head housekeeper who had served the royal family for over 20 years, found herself stopping frequently to dab at her eyes with her handkerchief. In the palace medical wing, Dr. Richardson reviewed his notes one final time before the scheduled meeting with the royal family. As the kingdom's most respected physician, he had delivered difficult news before, but never to people he had grown to care about so deeply over the years. The weight of responsibility hung heavy in the air as servants prepared the blue drawing room for what would become one of the most significant gatherings in recent royal history. Every detail mattered now. Every word would be remembered and repeated throughout the kingdom for generations to come. Outside the palace gates, news reporters from across the nation began setting up their equipment, sensing that something momentous was about to unfold. The usually strict palace security had been quietly reinforced, though the guards maintained their professional demeanor despite the emotional undercurrents flowing through their ranks. As the clock tower chimed 10 o'clock, King Edmund rose from his chair with the slow, deliberate movements of a man carrying the world's heaviest burden. The time had come to face not only his family, but his entire kingdom, with news that would change everything they thought they knew about their beloved royal family. The morning that had begun like any other was about to become a day that would be remembered in the kingdom's history forever, marking the beginning of a journey none of them had ever imagined they would have to take together. The blue drawing room fell silent as the royal family gathered around the mahogany table that had witnessed countless important discussions throughout the centuries. Princess Helena's younger sister, Princess Victoria, had arrived from her residence in the countryside, her usual bright smile replaced by deep concern. She had driven through the night after receiving the urgent summons from her father. Dr. Richardson entered the room carrying a leather portfolio, his expression professional yet compassionate. He had served as the royal physician for over 15 years, and his relationship with the family had grown beyond that of mere doctor and patient. Today, however, the formal distance seemed necessary as he prepared to deliver news that would reshape their world. "Your Majesties, your Royal Highnesses," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. King Edmund nodded for him to continue, while Queen Isabella reached for her husband's hand, their fingers intertwining with the familiarity of 3 decades of marriage. The diagnosis was complex, Dr. Richardson explained, requiring immediate attention and a long-term treatment plan that would affect not only Princess Victoria's health but her royal duties as well. The rare autoimmune condition had been developing silently for months, explaining the fatigue and other symptoms that had been dismissed as stress from her demanding schedule. Princess Helena listened intently, her journalist background helping her process the medical terminology while her heart ached for her younger sister. Victoria had always been the most energetic member of the royal family, known for her charity work and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life. The irony that such a vibrant person would face such a challenge was not lost on anyone in the room. Prince Alexander found himself thinking about the immediate practical implications. Royal engagements would need to be rescheduled, public appearances carefully planned, and the delicate balance of maintaining both transparency and privacy would require careful navigation. His training as heir had prepared him for many scenarios, but watching his sister-in-law process this life-changing news was something no royal education could have prepared him for. Queen Isabella asked the questions that mattered most to a mother's heart. Would Victoria be able to have children? Would she be able to continue her royal duties? Would she be able to live a full, happy life? Dr. Richardson's answers were cautiously optimistic, emphasizing that early detection gave them the best possible chance for effective treatment. The conversation continued for over an hour, covering treatment options, timeline for recovery, and the support systems that would need to be put in place. Each family member processed the information differently, but their unity was evident in the way they instinctively moved closer together, creating an invisible circle of protection around Victoria. As the meeting concluded, the reality of their next challenge became clear. They would need to inform the public, and they would need to do it in a way that conveyed both the seriousness of the situation and their confidence in Victoria's strength and resilience. The people of the kingdom had watched Victoria grow from a mischievous child into a dedicated young woman, and they deserved to hear the truth directly from the family she loved so dearly. The preparation for the public announcement would require careful coordination between the palace communications team, Dr. Richardson, and the royal family themselves, ensuring that every word spoken would provide comfort while acknowledging the challenges ahead. The palace communications director, Margaret Sinclair, worked tirelessly with the royal family to craft a statement that would strike the right tone. With 30 years of experience in royal communications, she understood the delicate balance required when sharing personal family matters with the public. Every word needed to be carefully chosen to provide necessary information while respecting the family's privacy during such a vulnerable time. Princess Victoria insisted on being part of the statement preparation process, despite her family's gentle suggestions that she rest. Her determination to maintain control over her own narrative impressed everyone in the room, reflecting the strong character that had made her such a beloved member of the royal family. She wanted to ensure that her voice and her perspective were clearly heard in whatever message went out to the kingdom. The palace staff had been quietly preparing for increased public attention. Additional security measures were discreetly put in place, while the switchboard operators braced themselves for the flood of calls from media outlets around the world. The kitchen staff began preparing for the increased demands that would come from extended working hours and the possibility of hosting additional support staff in the coming days. Prince Alexander spent time reviewing constitutional procedures with the palace legal advisors, ensuring that any necessary adjustments to Victoria's royal duties would be handled properly. While her condition wouldn't affect the line of succession, her role in various charitable organizations and ceremonial functions would need to be carefully managed during her treatment period. Queen Isabella found herself thinking about the women in the kingdom who might be facing similar health challenges without the support system and resources available to her daughter. She began making quiet plans to use this difficult situation as an opportunity to bring greater awareness and support to others dealing with autoimmune conditions, transforming personal pain into purpose. Dr. Richardson worked with specialists from the kingdom's leading medical institutions to ensure that Victoria would receive the most advanced treatment available. The collaboration between the royal medical team and public health experts also opened discussions about improving resources for all citizens facing similar diagnoses. As afternoon approached, the crowd outside the palace had grown considerably. Local news stations reported that people had traveled from across the kingdom, bringing flowers, cards, and homemade signs, expressing their support for Princess Victoria. The spontaneous outpouring of public affection provided comfort to the royal family during their time of uncertainty. The royal communications team coordinated with television networks and newspaper editors to ensure that the announcement would reach the widest possible audience simultaneously, preventing the spread of rumors or misinformation. The timing was crucial, as they wanted to control the narrative and provide accurate information before speculation could take hold. Princess Helena spent quiet moments with Victoria, sharing stories and memories that reminded them both of the strength they had discovered in each other since Helena had married into the royal family 5 years earlier. Their bond had grown from polite sister-in-law relationship into genuine friendship, and Helena's presence provided Victoria with comfort that went beyond formal royal support. The final preparations were completed as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon. The blue drawing room was arranged for the television cameras, with subtle lighting adjustments that would present the royal family in a way that conveyed both dignity and accessibility. Every detail had been considered, from the choice of flowers in the background to the placement of family photographs that would remind viewers of the human side of the royal family. The moment had arrived for the royal family to step forward and share their truth with the kingdom that had supported them through generations of both triumph and challenge. The television cameras rolled as King Edmund and Prince Alexander entered the blue drawing room, their faces carrying the weight of the announcement they were about to make. The room, which had hosted countless royal addresses over the decades, felt different today, charged with an emotional intensity that seemed to reach through the camera lens to viewers across the kingdom and beyond. King Edmund began speaking in the measured, authoritative tone that had guided the nation through various challenges over his 30-year reign. His words were carefully chosen, explaining Princess Victoria's diagnosis with clarity while emphasizing the positive aspects of early detection and modern medical treatment. However, those who knew him well could detect the slight tremor in his voice when he spoke about his daughter's strength and courage. Prince Alexander stood beside his father, his presence serving as a symbol of continuity and stability for the kingdom. When his turn came to speak, he talked about Victoria not just as a princess but as a sister, daughter, and dedicated public servant who had always put the needs of others before her own. His words painted a picture of a young woman who had faced this challenge with the same grace and determination she brought to all aspects of her royal duties. The cameras occasionally shifted to show the crowd gathered outside the palace, where thousands of citizens had come to show their support. Many held candles despite the daylight, creating a symbolic gesture of hope and solidarity. Children held handmade drawings. Elderly citizens clutched photographs of the princess from various public events, and young adults shared stories on social media about how Princess Victoria's charitable work had touched their lives. Television networks across neighboring kingdoms interrupted their regular programming to broadcast the announcement, recognizing the international significance of the news. Royal families from around the world began sending private messages of support, while diplomatic channels quietly activated to ensure that any necessary adjustments to state visits or international engagements could be handled with appropriate sensitivity. The royal family's transparency in sharing Victoria's diagnosis was noted by medical professionals as an important step in reducing stigma around autoimmune conditions. Several leading physicians appeared on news programs throughout the day, explaining the condition in accessible terms and emphasizing that many people with similar diagnoses lead full, productive lives with proper treatment and support. Social media platforms filled with messages of support using hashtags that had spontaneously emerged during the announcement. Citizens shared their own stories of overcoming health challenges, creating an unexpected community of support that extended far beyond the kingdom's borders. The trending topics reflected not just concern for Princess Victoria, but genuine admiration for the royal family's courage in sharing such personal information. Princess Helena watched the announcement from a private room in the palace, holding Victoria's hand as they witnessed the kingdom's response to their family's vulnerability. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness but from the overwhelming realization of how deeply the citizens cared about her well-being. The support was more extensive and heartfelt than she had ever imagined possible. The palace switchboard was flooded with calls from citizens wanting to send personal messages, from medical researchers offering their expertise, and from charitable organizations requesting guidance on how they might contribute to awareness and research efforts. The volume of response demonstrated that this moment had become more than just a royal announcement. It had become a catalyst for broader community engagement and support. As the formal announcement concluded, King Edmund and Prince Alexander remained in the room for several additional minutes, answering questions from selected journalists who had been chosen for their respectful approach to royal coverage. Their responses reinforced the themes of hope, gratitude for public support, and determination to use this experience as an opportunity to help others facing similar challenges. The days following the announcement brought an extraordinary outpouring of support that exceeded even the royal family's highest expectations. Letters arrived by the thousands, with postal workers requiring additional shifts to manage the volume of mail addressed to Princess Victoria and the royal family. The messages came from every corner of the kingdom and beyond, written by people of all ages who felt compelled to share their encouragement and personal stories. Princess Victoria, despite her diagnosis, insisted on reading as many letters as possible. Each evening, she would sit in the palace library with Princess Helena, taking turns reading aloud the most touching messages. There were letters from children who had drawn pictures of rainbows and flowers, from elderly citizens who shared wisdom gained from their own health battles, and from young adults who credited Victoria's charitable work with helping them through difficult times in their own lives. The medical community had rallied in unexpected ways, with researchers from the kingdom's leading universities reaching out to collaborate on studies related to Victoria's condition. Dr. Richardson found himself coordinating with specialists he had only read about in medical journals, all eager to contribute their expertise to ensure Victoria received the most advanced treatment possible. The collaboration also promised to benefit countless other patients dealing with similar conditions. Queen Isabella had quietly begun working with her private secretary to establish a foundation focused on autoimmune research and patient support. The idea had emerged from her realization that their family's platform could be used to help others who didn't have access to the same resources and support systems. The foundation planning provided her with a constructive outlet for the protective energy she felt as Victoria's mother. Local businesses throughout the kingdom had begun showing their support in creative ways. Bakeries created special pastries with proceeds going to medical research. Florists arranged purple ribbon displays in their windows to raise awareness for autoimmune conditions, and bookshops set up displays featuring books about resilience and hope. With Victoria's favorite titles prominently featured, the international response had been equally impressive, with royal families from neighboring kingdoms sending private physicians to consult on Victoria's treatment plan. Several foreign princesses who had faced their own health challenges reached out through diplomatic channels, offering to share their experiences and provide emotional support from people who truly understood the unique pressures of managing health issues while in the public eye. Prince Alexander had taken on additional duties to ensure that the royal family's commitments were fulfilled, while Victoria focused on her treatment. His schedule became demanding, but he approached each task with renewed purpose, understanding that his service took on deeper meaning when viewed as part of supporting his sister's recovery and the kingdom's stability during this challenging time. The palace medical team expanded to include specialists in nutrition, physical therapy, and psychological support, creating a comprehensive care approach that addressed not just Victoria's immediate medical needs, but her overall well-being during the treatment process. The team's collaboration became a model that other medical institutions began studying for their own patient care protocols. Princess Victoria's first public appearance since the diagnosis was carefully planned for a small gathering at a local children's hospital, where she had been a patron for several years. Despite her family's concerns, she insisted that maintaining some connection to her charitable work was essential for her mental health and sense of purpose. The visit was brief but deeply meaningful for both Victoria and the children she met. The evening news programs began featuring regular segments about medical research and patient advocacy, inspired by the kingdom's increased awareness of autoimmune conditions. Medical experts praised the royal family for bringing attention to conditions that often remain invisible to the general public, noting that the increased awareness was already leading to earlier diagnoses and better support for other patients. As the first week after the announcement drew to a close, the royal family gathered for a private dinner, where they reflected on the overwhelming response from their citizens and the international community. The support had transformed what could have been an isolating experience into a powerful reminder of the connections that bind communities together during challenging times. 3 months after the announcement, Princess Victoria stood on the palace balcony overlooking the gardens where she had played as a child. The morning sun highlighted the changes that treatment had brought to her appearance, but more significantly, it illuminated the quiet confidence that had emerged from facing her diagnosis with courage and grace. Her treatment was progressing better than anyone had dared to hope, and her medical team was cautiously optimistic about her long-term prognosis. The foundation that Queen Isabella had established had grown beyond their wildest expectations, receiving support from citizens, corporations, and international organizations. The first research grants had been awarded to promising studies, and support groups had been established in major cities throughout the kingdom. Victoria had insisted on being actively involved in the foundation's work, finding that helping others facing similar challenges gave her own journey deeper meaning and purpose. Prince Alexander had discovered strengths he never knew he possessed during the months of additional responsibility. His leadership during the family's challenging period had earned him respect from Parliament members and citizens alike, preparing him for his eventual role as king in ways that no formal training could have accomplished. His relationship with Victoria had also deepened, built on mutual respect for each other's resilience and dedication. The letters to Princess Victoria continued to arrive daily, though in smaller numbers than during the initial weeks following the announcement. She had established a tradition of responding personally to letters from children and from individuals who shared their own health journeys. Her private secretary had been amazed by Victoria's insistence on reading every letter, saying that each message reminded her of the purpose behind her public service. Dr. Richardson had become something of a celebrity in medical circles, not for his treatment of Princess Victoria, but for his advocacy of patient-centered care and his collaboration with international specialists. The treatment protocols developed for Victoria's case were being studied and adapted for other patients, extending the benefits of her high-quality care to people throughout the kingdom and beyond. The palace staff had settled into new routines that accommodated Victoria's treatment schedule, while maintaining the dignity and efficiency expected in royal service. Mrs. Pemberton, the head housekeeper, often commented that the experience had brought the entire palace community closer together, united by their shared concern for Victoria's well-being and their pride in the family's courage during difficult times. Princess Helena had emerged as an unexpected source of strength for the entire family, her outsider's perspective helping them navigate the balance between public transparency and private healing. Her background as a journalist proved invaluable in helping the family understand public reaction and media coverage, while her natural empathy provided emotional support during Victoria's most challenging days. The kingdom itself had been transformed by the experience, with citizens demonstrating a level of compassion and community engagement that surprised even longtime political observers. The response to Victoria's diagnosis had revealed the depth of connection between the royal family and their subjects, strengthening the institution of monarchy in ways that ceremonial events never could. As Princess Victoria prepared for her first major public engagement since beginning treatment, she reflected on how the experience had changed her understanding of service and leadership. The diagnosis that had initially seemed like a devastating setback had become an opportunity to connect with her future subjects in more authentic and meaningful ways, preparing her for a lifetime of service grounded in genuine empathy and understanding. The evening concluded with the royal family gathering in the same blue drawing room where they had received the initial diagnosis months earlier. The room looked the same, but everything had changed. They had discovered reserves of strength they never knew existed, experienced the profound support of their citizens, and emerged from their trial more united and purposeful than ever before. Victoria's health journey was far from over, but she faced the future with confidence, surrounded by love and supported by an entire kingdom that had proven their devotion when it mattered most.